Peace, guys. Patrick, ConservativeRap, and in this video I'm going to be asking a very specific question, and that is, does white culture as a whole have a death wish? Now, we don't often talk about race relations on this channel, but I thought this was a pertinent question to ask as it underlies a lot of what we see happening not only here in America, but in all Western nations, Western civilizations, as of current at least. In my mind, blacks generally are conditioned by civilization to blame white people for their problems. It started in the civil rights era, I think, primarily. Maybe prior to that a little bit, if you look at some of the work of Du Bois and the Talented Tenth prior to that. But similar to that, whites have been conditioned over several generations to feel guilty or responsible for the situations blacks find themselves in. I often say this is illogical. It flies in the face of all self-help because no one can improve their situation by blaming another person for the position they find themselves in. Generally, people don't evolve past a circumstance by pointing the finger outward. They evolve and conquer their circumstances when they point the finger inward. I'd like to take a step further in this post and ask a deeper question, and that is, do whites have a death wish? Namely, does white civilization as a whole have some shared subliminal, like ethno-psychological, internalized desire to watch their own heritage and watch their own civilizations perish? I mention this because if you just look across the globe, right, white cultures build great nations, they let other people in, and then they allow themselves to be dominated and intimidated by the same people they give the rights to. In the UK, you have a Muslim immigration problem, and here in the United States, there's a race immigration problem. South Africa has the same thing post-apartheid with the African attack on the Boer population. But I mean, think about it. Name one country ran by people of color where you want to rush to go live there, right? Immigration problems are unique to white civilizations. And ironically, all people seem to be proud of their heritage except whites. Why should whites feel responsible for what occurred prior to their existence today? Think about like a debt analogy, right? Like if your parents or your grandparents were in debt to some financial creditor, would you today inherit that? And similarly, why should you feel guilty about being prideful for your own heritage? Like, what are you responsible for? If you look at slavery, the slaves that were in America were captured and sent here by Muslim Arab slave traders. The Arabs owned a slave trade transatlantically, and it was African tribes who fought wars amongst themselves for the express purpose of garnering slaves. So it's very ironic to me that whites feel responsible for slavery when it was, in fact, the system of labor globally at the time. The very notion that slavery is wrong comes from white people, and all civilizations historically have had slaves, used slaves, traded slaves. So why feel guilty about slaves today? It's just weird. What happens if you don't retain your heritage? And where does this shame and guilt originate from? I'd like to notice that Hungary as a culture seems to be one of the few noted exceptions. They have tax incentives for families to make sure they continue to keep popping babies out. They're 11th in the world for Nobel laureates per million, even though their population is a smaller subset than others. And they have Christian constitutional law definitions for like families. I think Western countries are fundamentally lost. What do you think? I look at what's happening today. I think of the EU, America, and South Africa, and it's like globally, regardless of where you are, almost universally this racial guilt issue and this immigration issue remains consistent. The analogy I like to think of is like a Christ complex, right? Like these great nations are built, you bring other people in, and then those people that you bring in curse and vilify you for it. Like think about, like, let's say as a contrast, like China, right? Could you imagine if somehow magically, like out of a sci-fi novel, all of the people of color in America were transferred to China, and they tried the same thing and they said, hey, listen, all you Chinese people are racist because of, reason X or reason Y. Do you think the Chinese would stand for it? I don't know. What do you think? Feel free to comment in the notes below. Do whites have a death wish? Do they have some inherent need to position themselves as like a sacrificial lamb as they invent and build and secure great nations and allow other people into it? It's very ironic. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and look forward to more shortly.